quit kidding. Bruce Lee, giving you double vision. No fear, no mercy. Gloves off, try and hurt me. You can't hurt me, you can't hurt me, you can't hurt me. You can't stop me, you can't drop me, you can't block me. You can't break me, you can't shake me, gonna make me. This is the takedown, this is the takedown, this is the takedown, this is the takedown.
Sweep the leg! Sweep the leg! Sweep the leg!
High-tech defense mechanism. Crane kick. I'm a lethal weapon, sensei. Dojo, black belt. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. You can't stop me, you can't drop me, you can't block me. You can't break me, you can't shake me, gonna make me. This is the takedown, this is the takedown, this is the takedown, this is the takedown.
Sweep the leg!
I'm out. Crazy, man.
Oh, man.
Sorry. You thought you could win. You lost, mate. Man, you lost.
We always
Butler loses again. Hey, it's over, man. It's over. Nice.
I lost again.
Looking in a distance, a dreamland of a world for us. When the moon's alive, we'll map out a journey for you and I. For you and I. In the night, I'm alone. Without you, I'm drifting out. When you take my hand, I'm so high up, I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. And I'll never land.
Look, everybody wanna be on top. I don't think they know what that means. When you get there, then you can't stop. Everybody gunning for your spot, aiming at your team. I'm up all night, chasing dreams. Everything changed when you go from seeing it on big screen to behind the scenes. Leading the song like it's the light that lead, huh? You know the rich and famous kill theyself to stay rich and famous. Very same thing that they built their name with, be the same thing that they be enslaved with. So I don't want rap, you can have that. I don't want the crown, yo, I'm aiming past that. Headed for another throne, can't have that. This a kingdom where my dad's at. And I'm his son, my sing gun, so death won't have that last laugh. Child of a king, royalty, that's ass cap. They want glory, money, and power before you go. I promise you it's empty, we aiming just way too low. I know we own things we don't need to impress people. We don't know that we go broke, trying to look rich. I can't do it, I just want my new goal is to be close to the one that made my soul, man. Them other highs gon' let you down. I'm trying to get so high, I'll never land. No.
I'm alone. Without you, I'm drifting out. When you take my hand, I'm so high up, I'll never land. I'll never land.
Rufio with the ripped jeans, Kumo with the 16s. In the studio, Michelangelo with a microphone, writing 16s. But these songs ain't for the chapel. Try to build with others, your own attack you. Try to be a light and they blowing the match you lit. Can't use a shotgun to catch a fish, I'm on. Using a different tactic, come with your boom Baptist. Look at this rap cat with glasses, cooking the track. And every time I look at my past, I laugh like, you know where I should have been at? Nowadays, I just wanna make it classic. Trying to set the bar way above the average. Then smash that for the glory of God and do rappers like Apple, even without jobs. Sitting on the writer's block, penning everything that I've been in and out of ever since the album dropped. Things change, get the feeling they won't stop. I don't wanna grow up, never land, got no clocks. But let me give them balls and no shots to catch up. I got a message about a blessing, but it's written in cursive. You're gonna face death, I know the one to reverse it. Listen, when I say I get so high, I ain't even talking about sticky, no lie. The way up is down. Stay low to the ground and you close to the clouds. Listen, when I say I get so high, I ain't even talking about sticky, no lie. The way up is down. Stay low to the ground and you close to the clouds. For real though.
I'm alone. Without you, I'm drifting out. When you take my hand, I'm so high up, I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. And I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. And I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. And I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. And I'll never land.
Man,
50.
JR, B-Day boy. Yeah, man, I feel like money. Man, I feel like money.
Yeah.
Attracted to me. Oh, yeah. They come around like honey. They come around like honey. 'Cause I fly like a bee. Oh, yeah. Man, I got them all buzzing.
LDR8 laid back, black on black. Diamonds on my neck and my wrist matching that. Black mask, black mag, brown bag. Drop that off, shoot your black air. I'm a magnet, the money, the paper, I'm where it's at. And they're attracted to me, they treat me like PFC. I'm a PIMP, your chick just...
This is the Wilkinson Central Show coming to you in just a minute. We will preview our championship games for season 139. We have got dandies in both 1A, 1AA. We are also going to review the season that just occurred. We are now through the level 4 bowls. We have completed semifinals in 1AA. It's been a fantastic season despite the lack of media content, but we are back and we've got more. Head over to Twitter to vote in both of these Twitter polls. I want to know who you think wins these national championship games. This is the Wilkinson Central Show, and we start right now.
I'm not bringing the bias here. You are.
What they do up there? Brainwashing?
Hey, it's not my fault that your team is terrible.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
This is just honest. I'm sorry if it hurts. Oh wait, I'm not really sorry.
Put that coffee down.
Can't stop, won't stop. Where the brakes at?
This is the Wilkinson Central Show. We are now live and brought to you out of Roanoke, Virginia. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday evening as we are about to embark on 2 fantastic championship games. It is great to have you with us as always. For those of you guys who don't know, I'm taking a break from the CJ Sweat Show, my other podcast. A break, I don't know if break's the right word. We've pretty much we have discontinued that podcast. We're going to be debuting a new one. If you live in the state of Virginia or you root for any program in the state of Virginia, you're going to want to listen to that podcast. Virginia Sports Report will debut next month. In the meantime, though, it is Wilkinson time. It is time to look at these playoffs. I was talking to OP about this earlier today. This is like the strongest Final Four I think I've ever seen at 1AA. I didn't think Dayton really had a chance, but I say that. And that team was stacked. That team had there was a ton of talent on that team. The only thing they were really missing was an elite quarterback. Now, if you look at that team as stacked as they were, of the 4 teams, I thought if you were to do a talent comparison, they would come in 4th. You only have on that team 6 defensive backs. None of them are a senior. Only 1 senior linebacker. That was a young defense. And, with the exception of a running back and wide receiver, they had a fairly young offense too. So Dayton, I thought, was a very good team. A little bit young and maybe weak in the areas I don't think you can be weak in. Now, with that said, Alec got this team where they needed to be. I mean, he did a fantastic job this season, despite what we have said about him in the past. This season, he brought it. And this season, I think he made a point of, I'm not going to be the laughingstock of Wilkinson anymore. I'm going to prove myself worthy. We've seen this happen before. A lot of people came out and called out Vikes Rule. Oh, you're this fake coach. You're not as good as you pretend to be. And then he comes out and he rips off multiple national championships. Now here comes Dayton, and Alec was not scared to schedule some teams. He put Youngstown State on his schedule along with 3 not great teams, but decent teams, and then, a nice Cal Poly team. He also played in a fairly tough conference, dealt with Jacksonville. Drake won both of those games. Drake took him to overtime, and then he beat Jacksonville again in the conference championship. I watched I watched Dayton, and I thought Alec had a very good season. I know he lost in the Final Four, and I know most of us didn't really give him a chance in that game. I still think this was a great season for him, had a good recruiting class. And these playoffs, he played Jacksonville State. That's a good team. He played Texas Southern. That's Vikes Rule. It didn't just beat them by 17. And he beat Villanova 59-10 in the first round of the playoffs. So, did he get a gauntlet of a region like OP did? No, he didn't. But for, the cards he was dealt and the schedule he put together, I thought this was a great season for Dayton, and Alex should be proud. Now, going into next season, he again is scheduling some tough teams. He's got Stephen F. Austin on the schedule. That I think is a great game, which will open up season 140. And then he's going to end non-conference play with a trip up northeast to play Orange Pace and Marist, the Foxes. So, he's putting some tough teams on his schedule. And as much as we criticize him, ultimately what I want to see from a coach is, can you do more than just recruit star talent? Because a lot of people can do that. Can you give me a tough schedule? And he's doing both. He's finding ways to win. So I thought this was a good season for Dayton. The other team that lost today was Marist. And, that game today was just absolutely fantastic. Now, I'll be honest with you. My pick to start off the playoffs was I thought Marist would win the national championship. I thought their toughest game of this thing would probably be out of the gate with Texas State. And I was wrong about that. Texas State was good, but he had to battle through a very good main team, lost to Northern Iowa today, and had to play Stephen F. Austin, who I think has proven over the past several seasons, Jeff C. has, that team is no joke. They won the Big Sky 3 straight seasons. They've been to the second round or better for now 5 straight seasons. he's doing a fantastic job there with Stephen F. Austin. So that's not like a rebuilding team that he faced in the second round. He had what I thought was the toughest region of any of these Final Four teams. Marist did. And then to lose the way he did today, I watched that game. I thought Marist had that game in control. I thought OP had Northern Iowa where he wanted them, and 2 bad fumbles when he's about ready to score really messed him up. Now, that's not to take away anything from what J.D. Driscoll did. He's going to appear, J.D. Driscoll will, in his 3rd championship in the past 4 seasons. So this is not like a fluke by any stretch of the imagination. Northern Iowa belonged in this game, and they belong in the national championship tomorrow. I did think, though, Marist controlled a lot of portions of this game. But if you look at the stats, and you look at the data, this was Northern Iowa's game to lose. Floyd Parsons completed 67.5% of his passes for 300 yards and had 3 touchdowns. Martin Fisher ran for 125 yards. Roy Hunter ran for 78 yards. Daniel Gillespie, 162 yards receiving. Like, that's a lot. You're not going to win a lot of games if you're allowing another team's receiver 162 yards. That's a ton. Northern Iowa came up with 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, had a number of pass deflections, and 3 tackles for a loss. Like, you look at the stats of this one, and Northern Iowa did everything they had to do to win that game. So I know, it comes down to a touchdown late in the game. They're down 6, 21 seconds left. They score that touchdown to win. And it looks like inches. And it felt like Marist had control of this game. But if you look at the data, and you look at the stats, Northern Iowa went toe-to-toe with Marist and outplayed them in a lot of facets of this game. So I thought it was great. I thought it was absolutely brilliantly coached by both coaches. Neither coach did anything wrong. OP made some adjustments at halftime. Northern Iowa, I believe, made some adjustments at halftime. And, it came right down to the wire. And sometimes you're going to lose a game where you don't do anything wrong. So I thought it was brilliant. Now, St. Mary's is here. This is Schoolie Wee's first time making the championship in Wilkinson. It is remarkably impressive. He has only been in Wilkinson since season 132. He's only been a part of What If Sports since May of 2017. He is, by every definition, a rookie to this website. And he right now has St. Mary's playing as good as anybody in the country. I was willing to say yesterday, although I didn't, I was willing to say St. Mary's is as good as any of these Final Four teams, and I thought they were kind of like, everybody was talking about the game between Marist and Northern Iowa, and for good reason. We saw today why. But I looked at St. Mary's, I'm like, they're as good as either one of those teams. They really are, and I think tomorrow, everybody's going to put money on, is going to favor Northern Iowa in that game. St. Mary's is very much a part of this thing. Very much so. And you look at the matchup here. Look at, St. Mary's and this roster. St. Mary's has the better quarterback. Now, this is inches, not yards. Joseph Guidry is better than Michael Peterson. Guidry is a bit more athletic. The rest of this, though, is pretty moot, but he is a more athletic quarterback. So St. Mary's has the better quarterback. Running backs, fairly even, maybe give the edge to Northern Iowa. Don't really care too much about tight ends. I'll look at receivers. Best receiver on either team goes to St. Mary's. Philip Moore, he's a redshirt senior. Guess rates him an 85. That's absolutely incredible. He's got 90 speed, 88 elusiveness, 92 hands. That's a big number for a receiver. So edge there again to St. Mary's. Offensive line, it's about moot. St. Mary's has one of the best 1AA offensive linemen I have ever seen in Claude Smith, who is a junior and rated an 84. He's going to graduate as probably an 86, 87. That is an absolute monster of a lineman. But I would say, again, between the lines, it's pretty moot. Let's look at defensive line and how they match up there. You could argue Northern Iowa has a bit of an edge, but St. Mary's has 2 seniors and 2 juniors. So, again, formation IQ comes into this. Edge, St. Mary's. You look at linebackers. This is where I think it starts to favor Northern Iowa a little bit. Northern Iowa has an incredibly deep set of linebackers, 2 seniors, 2 juniors, and those young kids are also very, very talented there. Keep an eye on Thomas Whaley, who is an absolute stud at linebacker, has 81 tackle, 87 game instinct. He will be in the passing game a lot and can take away just about anything over the middle. Now, the secondary is where I really start to question St. Mary's and can they win this game. Only 1 senior. They do have 3 juniors and a very talented Reginald Dawson. He's rated a 76 and will be the best cornerback or best defensive back on the field in that game tomorrow. But the second he starts having to dig into his depth is where St. Mary's is going to run into some issues tomorrow. Here's the other advantage, though, that I think helps Schoolie Wee out a lot. Northern Iowa doesn't have a kicker, and their punter, a true freshman. And I am a big believer in special teams and needing help in those areas. So, again, today in that game, Northern Iowa, you look at the breaks they were given, they're on special teams. Marist had 1 kickoff return for a touchdown. So, again, that happened once today. I think St. Mary's is going to get another one tomorrow. That becomes huge. Are there going to be a missed field goal? Gary Hodges didn't attempt a field goal in that game today. He was 5 for 5 on extra points. Don't be surprised if they're forced to kick field goals tomorrow. The St. Mary's defense is good, and you're not going to convert a lot of 3rd and shorts against that defensive line and these linebackers. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like St. Mary's. Now, my pick, we'll get to it later. What I want you guys to do is I want to hear your thoughts on this. So I tweeted out a poll earlier from the WESPRN Twitter account, who you are picking to win the national championship. And right now, that Twitter poll, 75% of you are picking Northern Iowa, only 25% of you are picking St. Mary's, and we'll wonder if that 25% is a part of Schoolie Wee's vote. But again, I think that game tomorrow will be an absolute dandy in 1AA. We will get to my prediction tomorrow. I think it's going to be close. That's all I'm going to say right now is I think it's going to be close. I'll give you some keys to the game in just a little bit. Okay, the other game that's happening tomorrow, of course, cannot fail to mention this one. Nebraska takes on Southern Cal. And so this is a Pac-10 rematch from a few seasons ago when Jason Freeman was last at Cal, and USC was there at EZ was there at USC. So the interesting thing about this game tomorrow, Jason Freeman has a winning record against EZ 37. He's 9-6. And a lot of those wins came recently in those battles. So a lot of people were saying, Jason Freeman is the Achilles heel to EZ 37. He knows how to bring him down. He knows how to beat him, how to game plan against him. And I heard somebody say, EZ 37, I'm sure is glad Jason Freeman left the conference. I've talked to EZ. I don't believe EZ is upset that Jason Freeman left. Not because he couldn't beat him. He wanted Jason Freeman there for the recruiting money, first of all. Second of all, what Jason Freeman did to EZ was Jason Freeman was willing to take recruits away from EZ. And this is what a lot of people don't realize about the incredible success Jason Freeman had at Cal, was he is the expert at picking recruiting battles so that he can build the best team. He knows how to find high potential guys and how to do it for cheap, and he knows how to save his money for when he's going to be really needed, where it's going to be really needed in a battle. And he did such a great job at Cal. And where he started to really pick at EZ was on the recruiting trail. It was not just in these games. Now, the reason I bring that up is because EZ has, again, another very talented roster. And I don't think because of the recent games between these two have played, I don't think it's going to be evident tomorrow. I think tomorrow has a chance to be an absolute classic, an absolute great one, a very close game. These two coaches, to me, I don't believe one is a better game planner than the other. I just believe one found a way to recruit at Cal, and Easy was not ready for the onslaught when it hit, and it became very, very difficult at that point to get back. Now, you look at these rosters. The edge right now, I mean, they're very close at quarterback. Nebraska's got Leroy McCarty. He is an absolute stud. USC is John Sills, who's one of the best quarterbacks right now in the country. That, I believe, is a moot point. Nebraska does have this running back, Jeffrey Griffin. He's one of the best running backs I've ever seen. 91 speed, 89 athleticism, 83 game instinct, 86 hands, and then check this out, 95 elusiveness. Oh, and I forgot to mention 91 strength. He's got 3 running backs with strength at 91 or better and speed 91 or better. I've never seen that before. And so that is a huge edge to Nebraska, having a running back of that caliber. Now, USC's got some talented guys. James Hamilton's very, very good. But aside from that, nobody really compares to how good Jeffrey Griffin is over at Nebraska. And that is a huge edge for the Cornhuskers. Now, where USC has the edge is in the better receivers. He's got 3 elite receivers on this team: Frank Johnson, Matthew Waters, Ronald Collins. And they're absolutely amazing. Nebraska's got 1 really good player, John Bell, and then the rest of these guys are young. I mean, 1 junior and then 3 freshmen and a sophomore. So that, I do think, edge USC. Now we look at the offensive line. Again, I'm going to skip tight ends. It's not that I believe tight ends are completely irrelevant. I believe they do play an importance, but tight ends, it varies so much on the coach and how they're using them that I think it's a fairly impossible position to grade who actually has the edge. I mean, like, if you looked at Alabama's tight ends roster, you would not think those are really good tight ends. But the way he uses them, they're so incredibly effective. So I don't really grade tight ends from team to team. Now, you look at offensive line, this to me, again, looks very, very moot. And I would say this, too. If you look statistically at both of these teams, at forced sacks allowed, these 2 teams have they have good line play. They do not have great line play, and I don't think they invest heavily in it. That being said, the offensive lines for both teams are very good. And the defensive lines for both teams are very good. Now, I do think there's some importance to having a defensive line. I don't think the offensive line is as vital. And you look at the better defensive line, edge slightly to USC. Now we get into the meat of these 2 teams, and I think it has to go to the linebacking core for both of them. USC is one of the best linebackers I've ever seen. Carlos Miller, guess has him rated an 86.32. He has speed of 74, strength of 94, tackling of 94, game instinct of 91, and elusive of 94. That is a fantastic linebacker. Now, you look over at Nebraska, they've got a couple good ones as well, Roberto Winter and Francis Carey. Those 2 guys are very good. And then they've also got Frank Rice, who is a very talented freshman. Between the 2, I would maybe make an argument USC has a slightly better linebacking core, but it is very, very close there. Now we look at the secondary. And this, again, very close. I'm going to go edge here in Nebraska. I think looking at that USC defensive backs, it's good with the starting players. They've got 1 elite one, David Bryant. Larry Jensen's very good. And then the rest of these guys are freshmen and sophomores. And that's going to be a huge hindrance. Nebraska has 4 players who are juniors and seniors. One of those juniors is a redshirt. So they're going to have the formation IQ advantage. They also, in my mind, have 4 very, very talented defensive backs compared to USC's 2. So edge there goes to Nebraska. And then again, we talked about special teams in that 1AA matchup. The special teams edge here goes to Nebraska with a senior punter and a sophomore kicker. USC has a true freshman kicker and a true freshman punter. I believe that will mean tomorrow there's going to be likely 1 special teams touchdown for Nebraska. That could make or break the game. So, listen, you can go look at past opponents played between both of these teams. And I got to tell you, you cannot find one great game plan another coach choose. I mean, USC has blown out everybody that they have played. They played Florida State, won that one 55-6. Nebraska's blown out everybody they played. They played Michigan, who, by the way, is ranked 4th according to WIS. Won that one 66-17. They have destroyed everybody that they have played. There is not a good game plan to go to and say, that's the recipe for beating Nebraska, or that's the recipe for beating USC. The game plan doesn't exist. I'm telling you, I put up 34 against Nebraska, and I thought, I felt like my offense had played great that game. I still lost by 28 points. There's not a good recipe for winning this game. I think it's going to be an absolute fascinating battle between both of these programs. And I don't know which way it goes, but I am going to make a prediction based on what I see. That is coming up a little bit later in the broadcast. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a break. On the other side of this break, I will make my predictions for all of the Level 5 bowls. Then I'm going to make my predictions for both of these championship games, which should be absolutely fantastic. Keep your comments coming. There's a lot of people talking in Spreaker, a lot of people talking over in the Slack room, so keep those coming. And again, make sure you vote. We'll give a little bit of an update on the polls after the break. This is the Wilkinson Central Show, and we'll be right back.
There's nothing left to say. I know where I'm going. We're starting here today. And you know that right. You know that's right. You know that's right. Yeah. You know that's right. Yeah. You know that's right. Yeah.
Hey, it's your favorite redhead, CJ. I'm sure by now you've heard my opening rant, CJ Thoughts. Well, let me give you my thoughts on the car buying process. If you're like me, when you go to buy a car, you just want to find something reliable with decent payments. I'm not talking about going to the local guy down the street looking to make a quick sell. Buyers Auto has been around for over 100 years. And they're going to take time to ensure you're buying a car specifically fit for your needs. That's why I'll trust Buyers Auto with the purchase of my next car. Buy your auto from Buyers Auto. I often hear these non-BCS coaches, I'm one of them, complain. And there's a thread going on right now of teams dominating, consistently season after season, and how, it's a bit of an unfair advantage of once you get to the top, you pretty much stay there. And, we've talked about the elite advantage. Listen, I'm going to debunk all of that in just a minute. If you can't look right now what is happening in Wilkinson and see the recipe for it, then I can't help you. And I'm not saying I've got all the answers. I don't. But I'm not going to sit here and complain either. I lost to Penn State today. Wasn't really because Penn State had a better team. Now, they did. I should have had a better fourth quarter game plan. I didn't. And they came back and beat me. And that was why. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Now, the polls right now on the 1AA championship game, it is very close. 56% of you now saying Northern Iowa will win, 44% on the St. Mary's bandwagon. 1A, not as close. 71% of you, 71% are all in on Nebraska, 29% on USC. All I'm going to say is don't sell out on USC. Now, I'm going to make our prediction in a little bit, but don't sell out on USC. I think they will be very much in that game tomorrow. I think they're going to look at it at halftime and be like, whoa, USC came to play. So we'll get my prediction in a little bit. But if you're a non-BCS, or if you're a non-elite team, okay, if you're not an elite team, and so you're a BCS team, look at what Jason Freeman did at Cal. Because that's the recipe to win. And I got to tell you, I'm looking around now. There's not going to be an elite that opens up for a while. Tennessee maybe opens up after next season, but it is so easy to save your job in 1A. Dean Horvey, I think, just needs to win like a level 2 bowl next season. He'll keep that job safe. You can schedule your way to job security. And I like Dean. I really do. I think he's listening right now. I believe he's listening right now. I do like Dean. But, I mean, like, if you're a non-elite head coach and you're just sitting there waiting for that elite job to open up, you're playing a losing man's game. You really are, because even if Tennessee opens up next season, you want to know how many coaches are going to apply for that job? I'll be in on it. I guarantee you there'll be at least 20 other coaches that will be in on it. So unless you've done something special, I mean, it really comes down to maybe 2 or 3 coaches with any chance to get it, and you can pretty much figure out who's going to get the job once you know who's applied for it. So, I mean, if you're waiting on Tennessee to open up, or you're waiting on the next elite, my friend, you'll be waiting an awfully long time until you figure out the basics. And so I'm looking around at this, like, here's the thing. USC is back in the championship game. EZ37 is heading to this will be his 3rd championship game in a row. 3rd in a row. Nebraska is headed to the championship game. He built Cal into a program, like a dominant program, 4 out of 6 seasons and went to the national championship. So these 2 teams, if you were to be honest with yourself, you look at Nebraska, you look at USC, and you go, gosh, these 2 guys are going to be dominating 1A for a while. And I'm not even talking about Alabama, who's good, Michigan, who's good, Texas is good, Oklahoma is good, Penn State has been great. I'm not even talking about those teams. So where do you fit in as a non-elite? Okay, you have got to find a way to pick your battles. Everybody looks at Texas and they go, oh my gosh, Texas is on my running back. I'm not going to get my running back, so I'm going to get out of that battle soon. Well, do you know what that does to Texas? Oh, I'm going to get that running back for like $16,000. All I need is $16,000. I'm going to be yellow. They could have $30,000 invested, probably have a lead, not really know they've got a lead. I'm just going to sit here with $16,000. I'm going to wait for them to get out of it, and then I'll get the running back. And then you, who dropped $30,000 on that running back, are going to go jump in on this backup running back that honestly shouldn't be playing for you. So you've got to be able to realize, okay, if I need to start running back, I'm going to go toe-to-toe with Texas, and I'm going to drop $85,000 on this running back. And even if you lose, so what? Now, Texas is still going to have to spend $70,000 to knock you off. That means that's money not being spent elsewhere. So if you are in Texas's conference, if you're Missouri or you're Oklahoma State or you're Baylor or Texas A&M, and you force them to drop $70,000 on a player, that will have a pretty hard impact on them. Now, will it have an impact on you? Yes. That will definitely hurt you, but you lost a player. So you rescind the scholarship next season, and you're going to pick up that scholarship again at the end of next season. So what Jason Freeman did was he found players cheap that would develop very nicely, and then he knew, okay, I've got to spend my money here, and I'll be able to force USC into an uncomfortable situation. And he not only did that, he found ways to win those battles. So he went toe-to-toe with the only elite in the Pac-10, was the only one willing to challenge them for recruits, and that really took a toll on USC's recruiting. That's the part EZ does not miss about Jason Freeman being in the Pac-10. Was Cal, a team, in the northern part of the state you don't expect to come after you, went right after you. So if you're a non-elite BCS team, you have got to be willing to challenge your conference elite teams and go right after them. Because I'm telling you, Arkansas, Alabama's not getting worse overnight. You're going to have to go into Alabama and compete with them on recruits. If you're not willing to do that, and AWAGS is going to get his guys, then you're giving a very good game planner all the elite players in the game. And at that point, we're essentially just trading cards with the realization that a non-elite's not going to be as good as an elite. The difference here, now it's not that a non-elite doesn't have an advantage. They do. But you also have to realize that a non-elite which has not been to a level 5 game in a while, or has not had recent success, is going to be very much doable to recruit against them. Like right now, you could look at South Carolina, and they might have more prestige than Tennessee does. They've been to 2 level 5 games in the past 4 seasons, along with an SEC championship. So South Carolina and Tennessee are conference mates, fairly close to each other. If I was South Carolina, I would go right after Tennessee, because their prestige at this point has taken such a hit that the difference between them and you, even though they're an elite, is very, very minimal, if anything at all. And that's what people have got to realize, is that although there's always said elite status, and it's very easy to get an elite a certain level of prestige that a non-elite can't really obtain, even though all of that's true, the difference between that is very minimal. So to be able to realize that and know how you're going to attack those elites inside of your conference is the key to finding a way inside of these level 5 games and to finding a way into the championship game. The recipe was in what Cal did. And what Jason Freeman's doing at Nebraska, I'm telling you right now, Nebraska is going to own the Big 12 for the next 5 to 6 seasons. Like, this is the start of the dynasty. And so, and I'm talking to myself here, some of this is preaching to the choir, unless you're willing to challenge them on recruits, and you're just going to let Nebraska take the best guys, well, then go ahead and give them the next 5 Big 12 championships. Go ahead and do it. Now, all of that said, I don't think we're on the verge of dynasties that are completely unbeatable. Jason Freeman is beatable. EZ37 is beatable. And I don't believe dynasties in this game ever last forever. Everybody thought Nortonis was going to go into Penn State and win a bunch of championships, and he won some. He did. But, I mean, past couple of seasons, he's not been able to get that team back there. Everybody thought Alabama was the next dynasty. They've been very, very good. He's went to some national championships. He's won some, but he's not been able to do it consistently. So, these teams, Nebraska and USC, long-term look like the best 2 teams. I eventually believe they will be knocked off from the top. But it's not going to happen because of cycles. It's going to happen because some coach does a deep dive into what Nebraska is doing, both in recruiting and in game planning, and does the same thing to USC and becomes that pest that Cal was to USC. And that will be what opens up this championship window. Okay, so you look at right now the level 5 games. This is actually very interesting. Memphis is in here along with Navy. 2 mid-major teams. 2 mid-major programs. And then you've got North Carolina in here, winners of the ACC, and South Carolina in here, coming out of the SEC. Listen, there's 4 teams in here. 4 teams in here that are not elites. 4 of the 10 not elites. 2 of the 10 from mid-majors. That's very, very impressive. And then we also have Syracuse in this thing as well. So, these games are going to be an absolute dandy tomorrow, most of them. I think Alabama, North Carolina. It's interesting. Geneva is 4-1 against AWACS. I'm guessing that dates back to their time at WNAA. My gut tells me Alabama wins that game by like 40-plus points, and that's not any shot at North Carolina or Geneva. I just think Alabama's that much more talented. My other gut also says Syracuse is going to win by about 20 points tomorrow against Memphis. Again, I just don't think a mid-major team is going to go toe-to-toe with Syracuse. The game I think is interesting is Navy and South Carolina. Both of those coaches are just fun coaches to watch. They've not played each other in Wilkinson yet. Trey Omo likes to go to this heavy run attack. And then you look at what Navy does. They use trips and they use pro set. It's a more balanced approach to the game, which I do like. But they've been very, very good this season. And he also uses dime and 4-4 in his defense. So some non-traditional defensive options there for Navy going into the game with South Carolina. I wonder, does Navy go to some of those more non-traditional sets against South Carolina's attack? Or does Navy resort to, traditional 4-3 nickel defense against what South Carolina is going to bring. That will be, from a coaching standpoint, a game planning standpoint, that Navy South Carolina battle is going to be a fun one to watch. So we'll go through some predictions here. Fiesta Bowl, I'm going to say Alabama wins that one, and I'm going to go 56-10. I don't think there's any way that game was close. The Orange Bowl, I think it's going to be back and forth. I'm going to take South Carolina 31-20. I think they pull away there in the end. Rose Bowl, Syracuse and Memphis. Again, I don't think this one's going to be very close. I will take Syracuse 45-20 over Memphis. And then in the Sugar Bowl, this one's going to be interesting. I think Lions fan right now is a better coach than BK Dries, but BK Dries is 6-0 against Lions fan. Has not lost to him. So that is interesting. I'm going to take Michigan to win that one, but I think it's going to be very, very close. I'm going to go 27-24. Michigan wins it in the last minute of that game. And now let's get to our national championship predictions. So we will start off in 1A. You look at these two teams, and you look at Nebraska, averaging 70 points a game. USC averages 64 points a game. Both of these teams throw the ball very, very well. USC averages 5.9 yards per rush, and Nebraska averages 5.6 yards per rush. Nebraska averages 4.5 sacks per game. USC averages 3.5 sacks per game. Here's the interesting thing for Nebraska. They've played this really tough schedule, right? They've gone through the Big 12. They played two very good elite and non-conference play. They average per game 3 interceptions, 3.2 interceptions per game. I don't know how Jason Freeman is doing that. That has been the one statistical anomaly that you especially cannot rely on championship games going against redshirt quarterbacks. But if he gets 1 or 2 tomorrow, that could make or break the game. I think what it comes down to is I think Nebraska has, I think they have the better running back. I think they got better offensive weapons in that regard, and I think they're better tested than USC. I also think the freshman kicker and punter stuff, I think that's a real hurdle. I really do. So I'm going to go Nebraska, but I got to tell you guys, this one will be brutally close. It's going to look a lot like Northern Iowa Marist did. It's not going to be a blowout. So I'm going to go 1-point game. I'm going to go Nebraska winning it 38-37 tomorrow in that 1A championship. And I really think it's close. So let's see if you guys have any more votes on that one right now. Let's get an update here on our poll. 78% of you are going with Nebraska. Only 22% right now going with USC in that championship game. Okay, let's go over to the 1AA championship, which I think will be very interesting as well. You look at St. Mary's. You look at Northern Iowa. It's like I said earlier, St. Mary's is as good of a team, every bit as good of a team as Northern Iowa, as Marist. They belong in this championship game. Make no mistake about that. And like you look at St. Mary's, they did not have an easy time getting into this game. Like, I know we all like to look at Northern Iowa's road to this game and Marist road to the Final Four, but St. Mary's had to play Alabama A&M. That's not an easy opening game. They then had Cal Poly. That one's not easy. They got hit with Duquesne, who's been tough all season, and then they played Dayton, who had been rolling teams, and won that one 34-10. So I look at St. Mary's, they're doing a lot of things very, very well. What I wonder about with St. Mary's, though, is I wonder about that secondary. And can that secondary compete with Northern Iowa's passing attack? That, to me, is a big, big concern going into that game. And I don't know that St. Mary's can do that. I mean, Northern Iowa, they average 320 passing yards a game. They also run the ball very well, averaging 265 yards per game. This is such a brutal offense. And if you don't have the secondary, I don't know that you can win. So I'm going to go Northern Iowa in this one. And I think it's close. I really do. I think the freshman punter is a problem. And I think that is an advantage for St. Mary's. But I think this one's going to be 34-28. Give me Northern Iowa in the national championship game. St. Mary's will go toe-to-toe with them. They really will. And if you are into game planning, and you enjoy this game at all, watch the halftime adjustments in both championship games tomorrow, because that will be the most phenomenal part of this game. I think like USC Nebraska, I think it's going to be like a boxing match. And I think with USC, they're going to come out and jab, jab, jab. They're not going to go heavy on this. I think in the second half of that game, though, is when you're going to start seeing uppercuts. You're going to start seeing them go across the face. I mean, they're going to really start swinging at you. Nebraska, Jason Freeman, I think wants to have a big halftime lead. I do not think he wants to be up by anything less than 10 points going into halftime. So if we wake up in the morning and that's like a 3-point game, huge advantage USC. Tomorrow between St. Mary's and Northern Iowa, I think as long as one team is not up by 20 points over the other, it's going to come down to the wire at the end of the game. But one team could have a slight edge at half. What I've seen St. Mary's doing, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but what I've seen him doing is he makes adjustments from game to game, and then he's not really going to do much at halftime. So, again, like Jason Freeman, I think he wants to have a lead because J.D. Driscoll is going to bring you halftime adjustments, and he's going to give you things you're not ready for in the second half. So, how do you anticipate and prepare if you're St. Mary's? I think both of those games are incredibly interesting to watch. I really do. All right, your questions, comments in the show. Schoolie Me saying 2 mid-majors in top 5, JJ and LSU Saint, big props. Now everybody wants to talk about those strength of schedules not being strong. Let's look at it here. I think both of those teams tried to schedule tough. Yeah, Memphis went out. They put Buffalo on their schedule. That's not easy. Temple, not easy. Ole Miss, not easy. So, I mean, you say, oh, well, there's not like an elite on there. Well, they're a mid-major team. They wouldn't schedule an elite. Like, a mid-major scheduling an elite is essentially scheduling a loss. That's what it is. And I know Ebel had some success with it. It is so tough to do that. Navy scheduled UCLA, Fresno State, Buffalo, DePaul. So, I mean, like, they went out on a limb, scheduled some teams. They beat UCLA. I mean, like, I know the strength of schedule looks bad. Navy played one human opponent in conference that was TRM CCO, who I don't consider to be an elite head coach by any stretch of the imagination. No offense to him, although kind of, because, I mean, that guy's frustrating. I'm not a big fan of him. Memphis had some teams in conference that he played, but I mean, that included Tulsa, who was not very good, and TCU, who's not very good. Now, he did have to play Houston. He did have to play Central Florida. Those were 2 fun teams, and he rolled both of them. And then in his conference championship game, he played a sim. So you look at the strength of schedule rankings, that's why those are going to be low. I mean, that's why. By the way, Syracuse, their strength of schedule, 74th. That one's not high either, but nobody talks about that. And he played Penn State. I mean, a lot of that strength of schedule stuff comes down to who is in your conference. And, those coaches are not playing elite conference opponents right now. Okay, so any other questions, comments in the show? Let's see if we can get an update on that 1AA championship poll right now. Let's see, 60% of you are picking Northern Iowa, 40% of you picking St. Mary's. I do pick both. I would pick both Nebraska and Northern Iowa to win tomorrow, but even though we agree, I think these are very close games. I think they're going to be classics. These are some of the best championship games I think I've ever seen in Wilkinson. I mean, I think they're absolutely incredible. See, jobs opening up. We've talked about, is BK Dries. Like, here's the thing. I don't know that BK Dries is all in right now on that team with Texas. Well, in fact, I know he's not. I know he's not all in. What I don't know is if he's just letting those seasons expire. And if he is, when does that happen? And, who would get the job at that point? Those are some things I definitely do not know the answer to. But would certainly be interested to find out who would be the front runner for that job. Husker Fan 26 has had some nice seasons. LSU Saint maybe could make a jump. Trey Omo definitely is going to be in the running if that job comes open tomorrow. Again, SEC Championship, 2 Level 5 bowl appearances in the past 4 seasons. That goes a very long way. South Carolina's such a pest. That, by the way, that's another great recipe for going toe-to-toe with elites, is having a game plan that elites just aren't ready for. And, like, I've talked to AWACS, and he's got a game plan right now that he feels pretty confident against, to use with Trey Omo. But I can tell you right now, he does not go into a game with Trey Omo and get super excited about that. Trey Omo has been a pest to AWACS. I can tell you that right now. And I think, that is a great strategy to compete with some of these elites in your conference. Have a game plan that they're just not prepared for. Something unique, and South Carolina certainly brings that. The interesting thing is the ACC. Like, how does an unranked team win your conference championship? And I know, like, the ACC had Miami and you had Florida State this season, but come on. I mean, those are your only 2 ranked teams. Boston College outside the top 25. And, like, again, I like Genoover. I do. He's a good coach. But how in the world you're letting North Carolina win that is beyond me. Like, you look at that North Carolina roster, and again, Genoover's tough. He game plans. But you look at that North Carolina roster, it is nowhere near what Miami should be. Like, that quarterback, Jeffrey Wynn, is talented, but he's a redshirt sophomore. He would not start with a lot of these higher-end 1AA teams. Again, I'm looking at right now. I mean, defensive line, it's okay. Only 4 linebackers on this team. Only 3 I would even let play for me. I don't understand. How do you let a non-elite, unranked North Carolina team with only 3 capable linebackers win your conference? I look at the ACC. That is right now by far, by and away, the weakest conference in Wilkinson. The weakest BCS conference in Wilkinson. That one is. That boggles my mind. Not a team in the top 10. Only 2 in the top 25. Neither one of them win the conference. And I like to go to Miami. I do. But again, 3 straight seasons without a conference championship. He lost to Liberty Bowl last season. He's been in the Cotton Bowl 2 of the past 3 seasons and won that this season. I don't know. I mean, he beat Fresno State, by the way. So it's not like he's getting to the Cotton Bowl and then even playing like a Stanford or something. Like, he's playing Fresno State, another mid-major team. And yeah, Miami lost a head-to-head in North Carolina. But I just don't know. Like, if you're Miami, that to me is an inexcusable loss. I mean, it's inexcusable. Like, look at Miami's roster. 2 incredible quarterbacks. 2 incredible running backs. Very good offensive line. Like, what are you doing losing to a team that only has 3 capable linebackers? Like, just 3. Like, I mean, okay, they've only got 3 capable linebackers. You know what I'm going to do? Hit them over the middle of the field. The entire game. We're going middle of the field. I'm going to use my running backs. We're going to run on you. And your linebackers are going to be completely gassed by the end of 4 quarters. That to me is an inexcusable loss. If you are an elite team with elite talent, which Miami has, I mean, like, you look at that roster, that is one of the most talented teams right now in the country, as talented as USC or Nebraska. As talented. They lost that game. And I like the GOAT. I do. But to me, you cannot lose to UNC like that. You just cannot lose that game. The ACC right now has been absolutely horrible. The SEC has been great. Arkansas has really been a fun team to watch. Ole Miss, I don't think is far behind. South Carolina, I think, is very good. The downside right now to the SEC is Tennessee and Florida. Neither one can finish in the top 30. And Dean Horvey at Tennessee is going to fall to in jeopardy. That will happen tomorrow night, most likely. So does he retain that Tennessee job? And if not, then who do they go? Then who would Tennessee hire? And how is the rest of the SEC affected by that? By the way, a lot of this, a lot of Dean Horvey keeping that job is going to be scheduling next season. He has given himself a tough schedule. Minnesota, Notre Dame, West Virginia, DePaul. Those are all 4 games you could very well lose. And then he's got the SEC conference to get through. This season, he was met with Alabama and Ole Miss in his non-divisional opponent games. So, the interesting thing is, does he get Alabama, LSU, Arkansas? Because if he gets 2 of those 3, along with those 4 tough non-conference games, and then he's got to play South Carolina and Florida, I mean, that's going to be tough for him to retain. I don't know. I don't know that Tennessee can get through that. I don't know if Dean Horvey can retain that job next season. So I think Tennessee, depending on schedule pending, likely opens up next season. The SEC has been so fun to watch, though. From recruiting, because by the way, all those SEC teams, like I'm in the SEC and Rockney, you are forced to recruit against other SEC teams. It is you and a couple teams in the Big 12. Speaking of the Big 12, that's been a fun conference to be in. It really has. Missouri, I think, is close to being a top 25 team next season. Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M were both very good this season. And then Nebraska, I think long-term is built very, very well and will be around for a very long time. So that's been fun. Big East, by the way. This is unbelievable. The Big East has 10 coaches. Was at 12 at one point. Only $55,000 in recruiting money. So, before you take Colorado State or Cincinnati, keep all of that in mind. That the Big East, with all of those coaches, has really struggled. And I think part of that is you don't have an elite. That makes things tough. And the other part of it is most of those teams, like 9 out of those 12 teams, are all in the same area of the country. And so even when you get the recruiting money you're going to get, you're going head-to-head with each other. I've been saying that for seasons now. And you look at the SEC, I mean, it's Syracuse, it's Rutgers, and then it's a bunch of teams that keep scheduling way too tough and recruiting against each other. Either ease up in the scheduling department or find ways. I mean, like, that would be the one area. There's not an elite in the Big East. There's not an elite. Like, there's an elite in the Big 12. There's elites in the Big 12. There's an elite in the Pac-10. So in the Big East, there's not one, though. So in the Big East, there's not a team with an advantage. So, be smart about it. Don't completely avoid your conference teammates altogether. But at the same time, if you're eating each other alive there, that becomes another problem. You can't go one way. No, I do not want any company in Colorado. No, honestly, I mean, I've had coaches come into Colorado State before. You can do that. Just know, like, 5 out of the past 6 seasons between Colorado State and Air Force, I have had a recruiting money advantage. And just keep in mind, like, the state of Colorado does not produce a lot of recruits. It's going to give you about 3 to 4 higher end recruits. It's going to give you about 3 to 4 nice recruits. And then the rest, I mean, you're taking development guys. You're taking guys that you want to train over the next few seasons. So if you come into Colorado, that's fine. But between me and you, neither one of us are going to build an elite team in the state of Colorado. So don't take Colorado State with the intent of, I'm going to go win national championships, because there's not enough recruits to go around in that state to do it. And by the way, BYU likes to come over to Colorado, and he and I battle frequently. So again, you can do it if you want. I don't mind. I've had competition here before. It doesn't bother me. But it's not a recipe for instant success if that's the way you're looking at it. It is as tough as any other job. It really is. Okay, want to thank you guys for listening. It's been always an absolute pleasure. By the way, everybody get on TD's case. He came out and said something really weak. He said, I was going to do a show tonight, but then CJ said he's going to do a show. Okay, that's not how this works. You're in the West Coast. You're in Arizona. Either do a show or don't do a show. But don't you dare blame me. And if you're going to do a show tomorrow, great. I will be listening. But don't let me be the reason you're not doing one tonight. If you want to do one tonight, get one out there. And everybody needs to go direct message him to do a show tonight. Because, the only thing better than the Wilkinson Central show is when there's 2 shows happening. So don't let him use me as his stool to get off of doing a show. That's not how this works. If you're going to do it, but don't you blame me if you're not going to do it. That really ticks me off. You guys go message him. Let's see, any last votes in these polls? Yeah, Nebraska up 30% over USC. You guys really like Nebraska in that one. And Northern Iowa, 55% of you are picking them, 45% picking St. Mary's. So either some of you are truly seeing what I'm seeing with these with that game, or you just look at St. Mary's and realize that's a really good team. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Always a pleasure doing this show with you. It's been a pleasure doing this one. Again, don't forget, check out Virginia Sports Report. I will have more information on that coming at a later time. I'm excited to bring you that. This is the Wilkinson Central Show. Have a good night.